So why do your friends hate reading your stories? Well,
Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast. Woohoo!
people often share their work before it's ready. I know I used to. They have different reasons. One of them is, I need inspiration, and I just feel so inspired when people comment on my story. I need to know what my characters should do next. What do people want my characters to do? I need some input from people who are enjoying the story. Or you might hear, I'm looking for some motivation. I don't feel like I want to write this story, but every time I get a comment, it makes me more determined to finish it. But here's the first truth of it all. If you train yourself to write for external motivation or external validation, then you will never develop the skills necessary to write books consistently, quickly, and books that you love. You won't learn how to get the idea in your head, the feeling that you wanted, the characters that you wanted onto paper in a way that is satisfying for strangers to read. Not every stranger, we've talked about this before. If your book gets a 50% approval rate from a bunch of strangers, you're doing great. But back to this, if you are always hunting for external validation, then you're going to get stuck in it. And if people stop commenting, if they get bored with your story, you won't be able to write again because you'll have nothing to run on. Your story, your mind, your creativity will have no fuel. So it's as if when you're writing your story at the same time and you ask someone to read it, you're sharing it with them, be it a friend or a stranger, let's say they're your friends because they're probably nicer. It's like saying, hey, I have this really great carriage, this amazing carriage ride that I want you to come on with me. So come on over and come on this carriage ride with me. They arrive and you're like, yeah, here's the thing though, before we go on this carriage ride, I don't have any horses. So I need you to stand here and hold this rope and pull the carriage and I'll tell you more or less where to turn, but I want you to take some turns too. I want you to decide where we're going and just go at the pace you want. I'll go at the pace you go at because I need your help here. If you were one of those friends, you would be very disappointed and you wouldn't be returning for a carriage ride again, right? Even worse than that, the carriage, the experience that you wanted to share in this beautiful carriage ride with your friends, your stories are going to start to wend this way and that, with the whims and the likes and dislikes, with the favorite tropes of your readers. For example, you might be writing an incredible mystery, and someone's, oh, can you add enemies to lovers? That would be a great idea. Add enemies to lovers. And you're like, okay. Add an almost kissing scene, and they get stuck together, and they have to talk about things, and I just love those scenes so much. You weren't planning on going in that direction, but you can see, oh yeah, these two characters, they were going to get together eventually anyway, let's go with it. You go in that direction, you give them the scene that they wanted, and then you are stuck again. How do you go back to where you were? But, oh, I love that. How about we have a sad funeral scene and he's there to comfort her or whatever. And so your story is getting pulled from where you wanted it away to where someone else wants it, which isn't a bad thing unless you want your story to be the way you wanted it. If you're fine with going the way your audience wants, and there are certain stories that do that, and there are certain platforms just for that, and certain writers and authors who specifically work for that, and that's perfectly fine, but that's not what we're talking about today. If you're trying to publish your books, indie publish or traditionally publish, you have to be able to write them consistently and write them by yourself, is what I'm trying to say. The tropes that people want may be a good idea, but probably what they don't understand, if they're reading your story and they want that trope, but they're unable or unwilling to write it themselves, is all the work required to build up, to set up an enemies to lovers, the time and the word count, and the sitting in a chair, the typing, the waking hours, the tears that it takes to set one of those up, have it happen organically, satisfactorily, that's a word, right? Make it satisfying, and have it move on in a way that blends with the rest of your plot. It takes time. It takes a lot of time, and it's not something that you can write in 1,000 words, probably. If you can, I'd be very impressed. Most people pick up a book because they want an experience. They want to be in a carriage ride. They don't want to be the horse. They don't want to be the driver. They want to be sitting in the carriage. They want to know vaguely where you're going. Vaguely. If it's a mystery, they want a mystery. If it's a romance, they want a romance. And they want you to be in the driver's seat. You're in charge of the horses. You're going at the right speed, and you know the streets. They don't want to have to deal with that part. They just want to enjoy the carriage ride. So, you're the writer. That is your job. This might sound harsh, but I'm going to say it anyway. Why are you clogging your creative writing engine with opinions from people who can't write themselves, don't know how to write, are unwilling to write, or think they can write and never do, or people who care about your story but don't share the same vision for it as you do? Or worse, people who think you should be writing something else apart from what you want to write. I mentioned that in one of my other videos. Why are you writing the book your mother-in-law wants to read? Write the book you want to write. So, why am I saying this? Because I'm guilty of this hardcore. Or I was. When I first started writing, I had this big story I was working on. I would write a scene or two, and I would show it to a few members of my family. And they loved it. They were very kind, they were encouraging, they loved the characters, they had great ideas. Whenever I was stuck, they gave me the energy that I needed to get out of there. They gave me instant feedback. I would record myself reading the scenes so that they could listen to it whenever they wanted. It was amazing. And then they'd usually get back to me like the same day, the day after, maybe the day after that. So I was always waiting for something else, and then I would get their feedback, really think about it, and then I would write the next part. Or really what I would do, I'll just confess it, I would go back and rewrite what I had written, and then feel enough momentum to write another scene, maybe two. And then I'd share that with them. I'd probably share the rewritten part with them, and then the new part, and then the cycle would continue. So what happened was my readers, as wonderful as they were and are, had their own opinions. One of them was very worried about my characters, and she had a really hard time when I did horrible things to my characters, which I do a lot in my books. The other one was really worried about the plot and all the plot points that I was just glossing over because I didn't know what my plot was yet. My outlines at that time were horrible and not helpful at all. So she would notice all these holes, and the holes weren't important at the time. I was just trying to figure out what was going on, right? They were both right. My story was a mess, but I was a brand new writer. So those flaws that they were really worried about weren't my priority at the time. I was just trying to figure out how to get the feeling that I wanted from my head onto the page. And it didn't require me being kind or consistent to my characters, and it didn't require me having a good plot without plot holes. It required me just practicing writing. But because they kept giving me feedback, my progress kept halting, and I would write more words. My word count went up, but the story never advanced. I became so dependent on their feedback that the time between writing sessions was stretched out longer and longer as I waited for them to respond. And then they ended up becoming disinterested in the story bit by bit because it wasn't moving forward. And I didn't know why it wasn't moving forward. I was just trying to put their feedback in, doing it unsuccessfully because I didn't know what I was doing. And it just became this cannibalistic mess of words and pages and suggestions, and it got nowhere, and it was very frustrating. It was especially frustrating because it was a story that I really cared about. I love those characters, and I'm still afraid to go back to it, and I'll have to just start over completely. But I became so dependent on their feedback. It was a crutch for me. I was holding two crutches. Basically, I was trying to climb a mountain with two crutches instead of learning how to walk, or learning how to run, or learning how to climb, or learning how to fly. And that's because I was too dependent on them. And I hadn't learned how to trust myself, how to say, no, here's what I want. Let me do it this way. Let me rewrite it. Oh, but I love that scene. No, it needs to be written this way. I need to rewrite it. I should have trusted myself. But worse than that, when they did give me feedback, I made excuses. Or, oh, yeah, I'm not sure about that part yet. I'll fix it later. And it was a part that needed fixing. Or, oh, I already thought of that. I just haven't changed it yet. I got into the habit of explaining everything, and I would spoil future scenes, future plot points, because I had to say, oh no, actually, this doesn't make sense yet because I'm setting you up for this other thing that's going to happen. So I want you to be a little bit confused about this and this. Anyway, their criticisms were true. The things that they said were great were also true, but it didn't make the story that I wanted, the story that I felt needed to be told. So I made a promise to myself. I made the decision that I would no longer share a first draft. And I have stayed true to that. But what I decided to do was, okay, when I write a book from now on, I will finish the first draft. I will not share any of it with anyone. And then I will let it sit all by itself. It will be a secret. No one will know about it except for me. And once I'm ready, I'll come back to it. I can fix it because I'll know what's wrong with the plot. I'll have fresh eyes. I'll be able to read it like a reader, not just like a writer, and pick up what I did wrong, pick up what I need to change, add more characters, take away characters, blah, 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 blah. That rule changed everything. So now I enjoy my writing more. And I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of my writing. And I do not share it until I'm ready for feedback, until it's the way I want it to be. It's not perfect. It's never perfect. But once it's good enough, B+ quality, and it has the feeling that I want, it has the scenes that I want, the characters are the way I want them, then I can share it. And that's usually around the second draft. So here's my challenge to you. Write your story, finish the first draft, sit on it, leave it alone for a month if you can. If you can, longer. Leave it alone. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Don't think about it. And then read it fresh. Decide what you need to change so that it matches what you had hoped for it. It matches the feeling that you wanted. Rewrite it. Or if it's already very close, then you have permission to share it at that point. But don't share it before you're finished. You're not doing yourself any favors for that. And frankly, your friends are going to get tired of reading patchy work. That's a euphemism, by the way. If you follow those steps, then when you do share your work, it will be worth sharing. And the feedback you get, be quiet when you get the feedback. Say nothing. Don't say, oh, you're supposed to feel like that. Nope. And just listen to it. Write it down. Because if the people you're getting feedback from, if they're giving feedback and you're not accepting it, then they're not going to give you honest feedback. So why are you sharing it with them if you're not getting honest feedback? It's going to hurt. It always hurts. But that's just the way it is. Here's the thing. Your friends probably do enjoy your story, but it's not fair to serve them ingredients when you promised them a meal. And a first draft is not a meal. It's awful. So fix it. Finish it. Love it. Let it sit. Fix it. And then share it. And get the feedback. And then fix it again. So, look, I know this is a controversial take. So if there are any of you listening to this and you're grabbing your pitchforks and torches, then comment below why you disagree. I'm interested to hear. If you're not able to do your own work, finish your own work, and edit your own work, then you'll never have good books coming out consistently and have them be satisfying. You'll never have the gumption, you'll never have the salt to handle the tough publishing industry. So you gotta earn that salt. Rip me apart in the comments below. If you want to support the channel, subscribe and head over to Subscribestar in the description. And you're welcome to donate there if you want to. I'm glad you're here for this video. If you like ruthless truth from a pragmatic writer, subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you guys later.